Welcome to Coffee with B. In today's episode, we are looking forward to take you through a discussion about the synergistic impact of electric vehicles and renewable energy on sustainable urban mobility. For this discussion, we have got with us another special guest today, Dr. Beshan Kulapala. He is a co-founder and CEO of Cyrus EV Chargers, Vice President of Innovation and Technology for Volt Charge, a Saudi and Sri Lankan joint venture company for developing high-tech electric vehicle charging technologies. He also heads Voltex, a one-stop engineering services and consultation company for high-tech product engineering solutions. Previously, Beshan was the director and co-founder of Vega Innovations in Sri Lanka. He was instrumental in developing Sri Lanka's and South Asia's first electric supercar and unveiling the supercar in the Geneva International Motor Show in 2020. Hi, Dr. Beshan.
Hello.
So to start off with the conversation, let me first ask you, how do you foresee the integration of electric vehicles and renewable energy transforming the future of transportation and energy sectors? So if you could discuss about the potential impact on technological developments, infrastructure requirements to policy changes and market trends.
Sure. So if you look at the electric vehicle market worldwide, almost all countries are now moving into electric. Even countries like Saudi Arabia, which I'm doing some work with, is rapidly moving into electric. By 2030, they hope to have 30% of their vehicles into electric. Now, this is a country where there is the most amount of oil, right? So for them also, they see the potential of getting into this technology. And you see this right across the world as well. So it's going to be the same for Sri Lanka as well, I think, because even though we don't like it or not, the car companies who are building the vehicles will also move into electric and into other technologies, and Sri Lanka won't have a choice but to move into this space. So there's quite a number of challenges that we need to address to have a mass scale EV penetration into Sri Lanka. One is the EV charging side of things. This is where I'm also very keenly interested in, because you need a number of EV charging units and then also a good enough grid to power those EV chargers as well. Those are some of the biggest challenges, and we are doing a lot of work in this front in Sri Lanka to get us up to speed on getting this technology. And there is quite a lot of push to get renewable energy into this sector to reduce the cost, to have more effectiveness on reduction of CO2, as well as to give a better environment for the EV vehicles to foster. So I think these are some of the important elements of getting EVs into a market like Sri Lanka and to be successful here.
What are the cost differences among the various energy generation methods like hydroelectric, solar, wind, coal, and nuclear power? Which of these options is currently the most cost-effective option for generating energy, and what factors contribute to its affordability?
Sure. So at the moment, hydro is the most efficient and the lowest cost for the country.
Right.
It's around 4 rupees and 80 cents at the moment. Okay. Whereas oil-powered, furnace oil-powered generators is the most expensive. It's around 64 rupees. Whereas coal would be about 25 rupees. Solar also around 25. Then wind is around 13. And in other countries, nuclear power is around 23 rupees, give and take. So given those numbers, using much hydro as possible will give you the lowest cost. But of course, with limited rain and other resource availability, amount of hydro that we can use is limited. You need water for farming and things like that as well. So when we have a mix of these generation plants in Sri Lanka, on average, it costs about 13 rupees to 26 rupees, kind of a range to generate power for the Sri Lankan market. So there's quite a lot of variation in that.
Right. What impact do large-scale EV adoption and renewable energy generation have on the stability and management of the power grid? So, particularly, like, what are the specific solutions and technologies that are currently being developed and implemented to address the challenges posed by these changes?
No, that's an excellent question. So each electric vehicle is a big battery, right? There's a big
Yes.
battery in the electric vehicle, and this is the most expensive part in the electric vehicle as well. So when you have a large number of EVs on the road, then it becomes a huge battery that we can utilize for many things. So, for example, there's a technology called vehicle to grid, where the charge available in the vehicle can be pumped out into the grid to power up your home or your city or whichever it is. So that becomes another new business model to make sure the grid can be stabilized with this kind of a large battery model that can be utilized on a daily basis. So, for example, in Australia, one of the towns, they went through a blackout recently.
Yeah.
And the vehicles, electric vehicles, were used to pump energy back into the grid so that they can power their, town and city until the issue was sorted. So these can kind of models can be utilized to help countries like us, especially with various power generation issues as a developing country, that we can then see how electric vehicles can help the grid and not just be a sort of a burden that only absorbs power, but also can give power back as well.
Right, right. Okay. So, for further understanding, how feasible is it to power electric vehicle charging stations entirely with renewable energy sources?
At the moment, this is a very common question. To be honest, can you have solar panels and then charge have a charging station? Is a lot of people ask this. At the moment, this is not possible because the solar power is not constant. Any cloud coverage will change the amount of power that is generated, and a typical car can charge from 30 kilowatt to about 100 kilowatts at the moment, even more sometimes. So that's a lot of energy in a very short amount of time. So at the moment, what people do is they generate all of the power through solar and whatnot and give it back to the grid through net metering, and then use the grid to take the energy back when it's needed to charge. There are some charging stations out there in other countries where there is a large battery backup system at the location, where they store the energy and then use it. But this is very expensive, given you need to have a large investment for the battery at each charging station.
Right.
So the norm is to give it to the grid and take it back.
Okay, right. So also, how does the combined adoption of electric vehicles and renewable energy generation sources contribute to reducing greenhouse gas emissions and mitigating climate change compared to the other strategies?
Yeah. So if you take a regular gasoline vehicle that petrol or diesel, it creates about 12,000 pounds of carbon on average, whereas an electric vehicle through its entire lifetime is about 4 times cheaper, 4 times less.
Right.
So about 3,000 pounds of CO2. So a 1 to 4 ratio is something that you can think about. It changes with different technologies and different vehicles, but on average it's around that much. So if you drive an electric vehicle, you're about 4 times less pollutant than using a petrol car. For example, another good data point is that petrol vehicles operate around 12% efficiency.
Right.
So the amount of energy you put in, only 12% is used to move the vehicle. The rest is generated as heat and smoke and all sorts of other things that you can't really use.
Yes.
So it's very, very inefficient.
Yeah.
But electric vehicle, the efficiencies are around 98%. So the amount of energy you put in, about 98% of it is used to move the vehicle, and only a tiny little bit is generated as heat. So that's the biggest advantage in this.
Yeah.
And then another common misconception is that even electric vehicles uses power that is created at a coal plant. So this is also not a very apples to apple comparison. because even the worst coal plants operate around 70% efficiency. And their smoke outlet is concentrated in one location, like it's in Norwich or whatever it is. So you can do a lot of mitigation to reduce the smoke and the subsequent filtering and all of that. Whereas petrol vehicles, because it's all around your city, all around your homes and whatnot, there is no way to filter each vehicle at each location. So there is a added advantage of having the smoke cloud in one concentrated location rather than having vehicles drive around in a city. So there is a big advantage there as well.
Right. Can you also discuss the other economic benefits and challenges of integrating electric vehicles with renewable energy for consumers, businesses, and governments as a whole?
Yeah, so if you just take the renewable energy part out for just a second, just driving an electric vehicle is much cheaper than driving a petrol vehicle. If you charge your electric vehicle at home, you could estimate that per kilometer it will cost about 4 rupees per kilometer. Whereas if you drive a petrol car, right now it's about a good 20 rupees per kilometer if you just take average car.
Yeah, that's
Yes. So again, there's a financial benefit of driving an electric vehicle. Now, if you have solar at home and you charge your vehicle through the power that is generated from solar, if you take the solar investment part out of it, you're powering your vehicle for free. So then there is no cost per kilometer for you, except for the maintenance of tires and things like that. Even on the maintenance side, petrol vehicles are much more expensive because every 5,000 kilometers or so, you have to take it to service, change engine oil and filters and all of that. Where on an electric vehicle, you don't have any of those problems. So electric vehicles do help financially, and then renewable energy on top of that helps you more on the long run. So there is a huge benefit of moving into electric, and I think this is one of the number one reasons why people move into electric.
yes, mainly in terms of sustainability.
Correct, yes. It's not because they feel like they are doing some benefit to the environment, mostly because it benefits financially. And this is why it's sustainable.
Right.
Because if it doesn't help you financially, then those things are not very sustainable in the long run.
Correct.
So this is why we have to really act more to get more electric vehicles into the market, to have the infrastructure here to make it a much more smoother transition for the people who are using.
Right. Also, if I were to ask you, how does the availability of renewable energy options impact the consumer decisions to buy electric vehicles? And what strategies can be employed to enhance the adoption of both technologies, that is EV and renewable energy?
So at the moment, with the work that we are doing, a lot of people are buying electric vehicles who already have solar at home. So this helps them financially again.
Correct. Yeah.
Because they see the benefit of using that excess energy to drive their vehicles. Yes. So these two things have to be coupled more to help this transition to be much smoother. So in terms of policy, there has to be incentives where if a person buys an electric vehicle, then some discounts or tax subsidies should be enabled for them to get solar into their households as well. Even the vice versa should be there, so that it helps and incentivizes people to get into this, not just the renewables, but also into the electric vehicle segment as well. And also having more charging stations around the country also helps to make sure that people don't have the range anxiety of not knowing whether they can charge their vehicles. So there's a lot of work that we do through Volt Charge and through BYD right now to put up charging stations right around the country. So that we cover the entire country with electric vehicle charging stations. So nobody should be worried about driving an electric vehicle to Kataragama or Jaffna or Trincomalee or anywhere. they can be rest assured that there is a charging station for them to use.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's a great. So, for my final question for you, I would like to ask: can you explain about the electric vehicle implications on insurance?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question. We had a panel discussion around this recently as well. And there was some great input of how insurance and how insurance policies have changed in other countries for electric vehicles. For Sri Lanka, it's a little bit newer kind of a concept. But in other parts of the world, they do see that there's a difference in how insurance is claimed and the cost of insurance for electric vehicles and gasoline vehicles. Yes. But they are also still trying to get enough data to make better decisions as to what the policies needs to be. So it's a newer thing for everybody. Yeah, that's right. But for example, if for example there's an accident and the battery pack gets damaged, right? How would the insurance be able to put a replacement battery pack? Uh, can it be a used battery pack? If so, what is the cost around that? Will a user be happy with a used battery pack, or would they want a brand new one, right? Because, for example, right now, if the engine is damaged, you can replace the engine. But a battery pack is a little bit more of a complicated piece of equipment at the moment because this is still new. Yes. I'm sure 10, 15 years later, these will just be like another thing that we just replace. But at the moment, these kind of practical questions are there as to how to have proper insurance. And also another interesting data point that they brought was because electric vehicles are very quick and fast. There is a 3-month window for new electric vehicle owners to get used to their vehicles because it's very quick. The driving feedback is different. So there has been a lot of small accidents in the first 3 months of a user getting into electric vehicles. So these are also very interesting data points because then that also affects how insurance policies are changed to match these kind of technology. All right. So for the conclusion, do you have anything to add overall with regards to the segment? Yeah, so this is a very important segment, I think, on electric vehicles because a lot of people are now interested on this. I've been working with John Keys and BYD as part of a company called Volcharge, where we develop electric vehicle charging stations here, and we've been putting those up with at the Kiel supermarkets now. So we are trying to expand this EV charging network right across the country so that it helps the consumers to make sure that their charging needs are satisfied. And I think a lot of people are interested in getting into electric vehicles now because the cars are very different. There's a lot more features and the value addition is much more bigger. So I want to make sure that people understand that range anxiety and being worried about electric vehicles is part of the past, and the future is much more brighter in terms of what the actual value that consumers will get out of electric vehicles. So I think it's a good time to look at the market, competitors, look at the vehicles that are out there and see if an electric vehicle will suit you for your driving needs. Right. Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Beshan, for taking your time to join us today. It was a very meaningful and I would say a very timely conversation. So thank you once again thank you for having me. Thank you very much. So on that note, we have something small for you from Senfin Asset Management as a token of appreciation. Thank you. With that, we have come to the end of today's episode. I will be back with another insightful personality in my next segment. Until then, take care.